Hi there, welcome to What Series 14 and number 49. We're going to be talking about how God used a servant to be able to find a bride for Isaac. It says in verses 1 to 4 of chapter 24, Abraham sent out a servant to seek out a bride for his son. Now Abraham was old, well advanced in age, and the Lord had blessed Abraham in all things. So Abraham said to his oldest servant of his house, who ruled over all that he had, "Please put your hand under my thigh, and I will make you swear by the Lord, the God of heaven and the God of earth, that you will not take a wife for my son from the daughters of the Canaanites among whom I dwell, but you shall go to my country and my family and take a wife for my son Isaac." Some really interesting stuff in here. The oldest servant of his house who ruled over all that he had. This servant's name was Eliezer. He held the position and he'd been in that position for a long time. He was a trusted servant of the house. And he held a position of great honor and responsibility, managing everything that Abraham had. Now remember, Abraham had accumulated great wealth, and this guy was in charge of managing it. The Lord had blessed Abraham in all things. That's a magic statement when you think about it. That is the short history of his long life, isn't it? God told him that he would bless him, and he did. The Lord had blessed Abraham in all things. That's a big statement. Yeah. When he commanded him to slay his son, yes, he had been blessed in all things. What? When he took away his wife Sarah? Yes. That was a long and fruitful marriage, wasn't it? Perhaps if his life had been without troubles, then he may not have been perceived to be of blessed so much. That's an interesting thought process, isn't it? That's kind of what Spurgeon said about that kind of stuff way back when he did it. Now, it says, "Put your hand under my thigh." According to ancient custom, this described a solemn serious oath. Abraham was extremely concerned that Isaac would not marry a Canaanite, making his servant swear by the Lord, the God of heaven and the God of earth. The person binding himself to put his hand under the thigh is the person to whom he is bound. In other words, this is a total commitment kind of vow. He put his hand on the part that bore the mark of circumcision, the sign of God's covenant. Our ideas of delicacy may revolt at this rite used on this occasion, but when the nature of the covenant is considered, of which circumcision was the sign, we all of a sudden understand why they did this. It couldn't be done without a great level of reverence and godly fear. And that's something that we need to do. This is done before God, the God of the covenant. Yeah, that's what we need to remember. Anyway, it says, "Take a wife for my son." In other words, Eliezer's got to find a wife and convince her to marry Isaac. Abraham was clear, as I mentioned, no Canaanite women allowed, and that the wife should be found among Abraham's ancestors in the area of Ur and the Chaldeans. In other words, go to my country where I come from. I trust those people. This mission is clearly defined. And if we look in verses 5 to 9, it says, "And the servant said to him, 'Perhaps the woman will not be willing to follow me to this land. Must I take your son back to the land from which he came?' But Abraham said to him, 'Beware that you do not take my son back. The Lord God of heaven, who took me from my father's house and from the land of my family, and who spoke to me and swore to me, saying, to your descendants I give this land. He will send his angel before you, and you shall take a wife for my son from there. And if the woman is not willing to follow you, then you will be released from your oath. Only do not take my son back there.' So the servant put his hand under the thigh of Abraham, his master, and swore to him concerning this matter." Wow. Abraham says to him. In other words, this is Abraham giving the directions. This is what I want. This is what I feel is the best for my son. Now, we all want that. I certainly want the best for both of my boys. Yeah. But it says, beware that you do not take my son back there. He's scared that if Isaac went back there, he'd see all of the amazing things and say, well, I want to stay here. Yeah. His wife was to come to him as Isaac stayed in the land of Canaan. Now, this principle was important, that if the woman would not come with the servant, it was better for Isaac not to have a wife. Okay? He wasn't allowed to take him back. Notice it says there, it reiterates, to your descendants I give this land. Abraham insisted on this because God made a covenant promise to Abraham and his descendants that the land of Canaan was theirs. Abraham understood that the covenant promise was passed on to Isaac, not to Ishmael. Yeah, we need to keep that in the back of our mind right throughout the whole book, actually.